Yeah. Oh, can you all see? Screen share? Shaking of heads. Good deal. All right. So today we have a lot to cover in a very short time. We have our welcome and introduction led by Bethany, and then James is going to go over some rural data that he was on a webinar about and talk to us a little bit about what he learned there. I'm going to talk about our new Cal Kids and what we're doing with the California State Treasurer's Office through the California Cradle to Career Coalition regarding getting our claim rates up in the North State, and then the all-important federal and state Apprenticeships 101 that Lisa Holtman is here for. We'll also have time at the end to talk about upcoming what's on the horizon, and then Marie wanted to talk with the main coordinators, at least, if you all could stay on for a few, regarding some items with UC Davis and our K-16 work. And I see folks that are coming in the waiting room. So if my co-hosts could please help me if you see folks coming in to let them in. All right, Bethany, you can take it over.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So as always, we start out with grounding in our why. Who would like to read the statement? I need a brave volunteer. Somebody, anybody.
I can read it.
Thank you.
I am striving to improve the economic and personal lives of community members who live and work in the remote North. I am doing my part to help build inclusive, supportive pathways that are responsive to local needs and retain the talent in my region by sharing resources, centering equitability strategies, promoting sustainability, and building lasting partnerships across sectors and geography.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amanda. All right, next slide, please. So for this check-in, I thought it would be fun just to kind of talk about something personal or professional, a success or milestone that you're celebrating right now. We do have a full agenda, so I figured it'd probably be best if you just put something in the chat really quickly. And then if you have something you're really excited about and you want to come off mute, feel free to do that. But let's see if we can put a personal success or milestone or a professional success or milestone. And I will share mine just really quickly, but I am done with my master's degree as of January. So thank you. I can breathe again a little bit. I'm trying to see. Oh, thank you, Gordon. Oh, that's exciting. That is a big accomplishment. Which school, Kathy?
Pepperdine.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Let's see. Oh, James, congratulations, I think. I don't know, mixed feelings on that one with her turning 18. But that means Disneyland is coming up, right? Awesome. They're taking their daughter and their daughter's boyfriend to Disneyland for her 18th birthday. Congratulations, Amy. That's exciting. I love all the personal successes and milestones. That's so awesome. Oh, you too, Kate. Congrats. Happy birthday to her. Mixed feelings. Time really does fly. We're going to be there pretty quickly. You too, Jamie. Seems like it's far away, but all of a sudden it creeps up. Oh, that's awesome. I love that, Jim. All right, keep them coming. And then I think we can, Jamie, you think you want to get started on Cal Kids?
Yeah, I can go ahead and get started.
All right.
I didn't put anything in the chat though, because I couldn't think of anything offhand that was exciting as what folks have in the chat. My child is still alive and I'm surviving this work season. So that's all I have.
That's an accomplishment.
All right, it looks like we have James up next on talking about the role of data. And then James, if you want me to stop screen sharing because you need to go to something, just let me know and I can do that. Or if you're
Okay.
talking just on this slide.
All right. So before the holidays, I sat in on a webinar that was put on, I forget specifically by who, but they, their highlight was this company called Headwaters Economics. And they're an independent nonprofit research group that works with communities and governments to improve decision-making, specifically using data. They developed several dashboards and tools that are available to the public, and they also can work with individual communities and governments and things like that to do more tailored work if you want them to. But I'm going to highlight today just a few of the things that are available on their site that are of interest. So, Jamie, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So can you all see that right there? So this is their landing site for their tools, and they have several on here that you can look at. There are several analysis tools. They have an economic profile system, a neighborhoods at risk, wildfire risk to communities, and then a library of trails, along with a bunch of other agency tools that they have worked with these agencies to develop. Today, I'm just going to highlight real quickly the economic profile system just to show you what it's kind of like. So once on this page, just click on the tool that you want. And then you can search by several different areas. So you can search by community, indigenous area, county, or state. And then they also have a short video on how to use the tool. So if you're curious as to what the community means and things like that. So I'm just going to look at Shasta County real quick. And as you start typing, it pops up, you know, your options that are here. So I'll just select Shasta County. On the right-hand side are the quick facts about the county, and these come from the U.S. Census Bureau data and the Bureau of Economic Analysis. So these are filtered in. Then on the left-hand side, they have a bunch of different reports that they've developed using data, and you can click on these different areas. So for example, the demographics one, you click on the little icon and you can download the report itself as either a PDF or an Excel. The Excel I was hoping would be the data behind it all, but it's not. It's just it's the report itself that's been put into Excel. So you could do some things with the data that way if you wanted to, but I downloaded the PDF report. It's pretty comprehensive, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But you can also compare to other locations if you want to. So if you wanted to compare to California as a whole, you could select that and it would do some comparisons for you. You will also note that some of the reports have a custom tool link next to the name of the report, and that pops out to some neighborhood level data that they've been able to put together for various areas depending on what the report is. And all the reports are really good about defining what it is they're looking at and where the data is coming from. So that's really good. Let me show you a couple of reports here real quick that I downloaded. So this one is the populations at risk report. And you can see I did it for Shasta County. That's my selected geography. And as you scroll through the report, it tells you, you know, what their data is, what the system is. It's got a nice table of contents. And then you get into the data areas where they break it all down for you and create some little charts that you can use for various things. And like I said, they do a good job of defining, you know, what are they measuring on this page? Why is it important? You know, things like that. And then towards the end, let me see if this report has it. Yeah, so towards the end, it's got all the literature that they've cited and things they've looked at for these various reports. This one's the populations at risk. This one is socioeconomic trends. And same thing, you know, they talk about the different profile systems that they're using. They talk about the trends themselves, and then again, they define them all really well. So they've done a really good job of putting these reports together for the different areas. This one's the key indicators, and they tell you what their key indicators are and how they look at them and things. So really, I just I'm encouraging you to go look at these. The link is in your agenda, and see what you think. See if there's something we can use. As kind of a side note, I am working on a project using similar data to get down to the neighborhood level. It should be done around mid-March. Down to the neighborhood level, I'm trying to layer on from a school district standpoint, mapping standpoint, some of the state data that gets reported by the schools, as well as layering in the demographics of the area and things like that. So we'll have our own similar tool for the region up here. It won't generate the pretty little reports like this, but it will be a dashboard mapping tool that we can use. So take a look at this. If you have questions, let me know. We do have our data meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and we can talk about it there if folks want to. Otherwise, have fun. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, James, it's Kate.
Hi.
Quick question. When you're talking about that neighborhood detail report, is that similar to what Jack Hess shared?
Similar, yeah. I'm using, from a US Census standpoint, I'm using that same data to define the blocks and things like that at the micro level, and then it kind of goes up from there. So the school district boundaries are defined differently than the US Census does. So there's going to be several layers that you can kind of play with to see how that all meshes together.
That's great. So we'll be able to actually look at, like, I think Jack called it like hotspot strategy, where we can look at specific school districts that say are underperforming in math and be able to just get in there and do some work.
Yes, exactly.
That's cool. Thank you.
That's the hope anyway.
Right,
So,
exactly.
by mid-March, that's what I heard, James. By mid-March.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did tell PRI I would present on it in April, so I kind of have to have it done before then. So
Great. And Kate, just a little background on, we did look into having Civic Labs do it, but what they would be able to produce would be static. And so James wants to be able to do something that's a little bit more interactive for us with a dashboard, and then being able to update it as new census information comes out in the future. So that's why we took it on in-house. And by we, I mean James.
That's
All right.
exciting. Thank you.
All right, thanks, James. And so I know some of you are probably aware of CalKids already, and the program that is out from the state to offer seed money to both newborns that are born in California, and then also students in first grade to have seed money for college savings accounts. And then our very own Tanya up in MODOC was one of the pilot projects, the few pilot projects in the state, rolling college savings accounts for the entire county. Now with the California Cradle to Career Coalition, if you all don't know, it's a coalition of Cradle to Career networks such as North State Together and others throughout the state who work on policy efforts. It is backboned by what's called GRACE and Child Poverty Now. So they hold the backbone support work, and that backbone support work is funded by Strive Together. So it comes full circle. The California Treasurer's Office reached out to the California Cradle to Career Coalition and said, our rates are dismal. How can we get it out there? And then, so we've been meeting with the State Treasurer's Office on what that's going to look like for the coalition, a small team of us. And so we are meeting with the full coalition team later this week to talk about what it looks like. But we did get our data, and the most updated data, December 31st. So we want to look at what it looks like in the North State, and then start thinking about what we can do as a region to really push this out and get the claim rates up. Because if you all know that if you have Statistically speaking, if you have a small college savings account, even of a few $100s, you're way more likely to go off to college. And so we want to make sure that our families are aware of what this is and to claim it. So accounts are created automatically. They already exist in the student's name, in the family's name, but they have to be claimed. And that involves for, in the K through 12 system, they have to have their SSID number, which, you know, sometimes that's readily available on student information systems. Other times it is not readily available. I tried to get my child's state student ID number, even though I knew it, just to see what it would look like getting it from the school system. And it was very difficult, right? For some of our families, that's a big barrier, just getting it. So looking at ways that we can more partner across our region, we have a list. Maria, I'll call on you in just a second. We have folks, pockets of folks that are working on this, right? Some school districts are already looking at CalKids and doing things. We have First Fives that are rolling it out. We have different folks that are doing this, but how is North State together going forward, and then our county networks going forward to really push this out to students and families. We are working with the marketing department at the state level, at the CalKids level, to make sure that we have targeted updated marketing to push out to our students and family. We'll also be having specific marketing that will have a QR code, so we know that it's from our collective efforts throughout the Cradle to Career partnerships across the state. It'll have a specific QR code so that we know if a family is going off that QR code, that it's through the intentional efforts that we have. I don't, from my personal standpoint and from our standpoint, we don't care who gets credit for any of this. We just want it to happen and decrease these. So this is just one example of, if you look at, let's say, what would be a good one? Shasta is a great one, right? There's 14,462 kids with accounts that are out there, and only 614 have been claimed so far. We want to get that up to where it's matching with the green. That's the goal, right? Is that everybody is claiming their money. And Marie, you can go ahead and this is the new board slide. Marie, I think you had a question.
I just wanted to share, if anybody wants to tag me how Siskiyou is rolling this out. We have partnered with the County Office of Ed, Siskiyou First 5, and our Family Resource Collaborative, and various banks and financial advisors around our county. And we introduced it last month. We're going to do a massive training for home visitors with basically train our people who are in contact with parents on a daily basis. So we can show them how to get their CSIS number really easy from their Aries app or from their student information system. And then train our people to help parents do this. And we're going to tag it on the end of our our family, our parenting meetings, and that sort of thing. So our plan, Adrienne Seltzer is actually coming up to do that training in person. And we'll be doing that in March. So we're with a big push for open houses in the spring, and then have a strategy for back to school night. And then also packaging in all of our welcome baby packages, all the information, the how to, and contact for support.
Thanks, Marie. Yeah, so she mentioned babies, which is the what I'm showing on the screen here, which is the newborn count. So we have some of this, Tanya and I have talked before, some of this is not super accurate about the amount of babies born. So I don't know, Sierra County could probably pop off and go, was there really only one baby born in the year that this is talking about? I don't know. But I will say the claim rates are still dismally low, regardless of whether the number of baby borns is on point.
I think these are the babies born in California.
Yes,
So
definitely the babies born in California.
Yeah.
Jamie, what year is
go
this?
ahead. I think, do you know, Tanya, if they're
I think
talking about
this is
the claim
from
rates for this year?
2022. So
I don't know why we can't hear you. Why can't we hear you?
Oh,
we did
can
hear
you
you.
hear me now?
And you're not on mute.
No,
I hear
can you hear
Tanya.
me? You hear me?
I can hear her, Jamie.
Okay. It's you, Jamie.
You can hear, and I just can't hear.
I'm sorry. But yeah, the Cal Kids newborns program started July 1 of 2022. So this is data at the end of 2023. So I think that it includes the year and a half that it was in existence. But again, they're only collecting newborn information from babies born in California as reported through public health systems. So they're still working on with lawyers trying to figure out how to document babies born in Oregon and Nevada.
Thank you, Tanya. That's helpful.
Yeah, no problem. And I just wanted to mention too that I did talk with CCGI folks about incorporating the Cal Kids into the CCGI systems, and they're looking at that. But I do know that I've met with some of our elementary schools, and for state testing, they have to get all the SSID numbers to the teachers. So we're trying to come up with a form letter that they can just merge the information and send it home to families that have. It says, you know, dear parent, here's the SSID number for your kid. Here's the website, just to have that information sent home because they'll already have it. And then we're also trying to do the whole back to school night thing. I think it's going to take, you know, just like kids, people need to hear it three different ways from three different people. So that's kind of one of our strategies here. And then also, you know, working with our high school kids. The SSID, if you have Aries at your school, it prints on a high school transcript. So all of the counselors, when they go in and do classroom guidance lessons, can very easily, if you're bringing transcripts and doing transcript review stuff, you can have kids just go right to the website, log in and claim it. We had a handful of college freshmen, so they graduated last year, that we were working with through the college center just trying it out. We were calling kids and saying, hey, log on here, look at your transcript. And it took them 5 minutes or less. And we had every single kid had like $512 because it had grown because of interest. And they just had to input their school's information, and the financial aid check went to the school, you know, paid off any outstanding bills, and then they got the money. So it was a pretty quick, simple process.
Thank you, Tanya. And I'm back now. Can everybody hear me? I don't know where I went. So I missed what was shared, but I'm assuming it was all wonderful things, Tanya, about the things that are happening in Modoc County in the past with Cal Kids and things we might do in the future and sharing of best practices. So we will be sure to keep you all in the loop of what's going on and what's going forward, and then also continually update this data so that we can see if we're making any improvements. Cal Kids is going through a process of updating their marketing materials. I dropped the school toolkit in the chat, but there's also other toolkits that are on their webpage to kind of help roll this out. Everything that's in there is still relevant, even though they're in the process of updating it. So don't feel like you can't push this out in the meantime with using some of the tools that are already available and on there. We know that if we don't get this information to students and families, they're not going to know about it, and then they're not going to claim it. So that's the main thing, and we'll be working in a more targeted way as we roll this out with the full coalition. Any other questions on Cal Kids or thoughts?
This is Karen Potts
Karen.
from. Hi, I know most everybody's working with their local First Five commissions. We encourage you to reach out to them if you haven't already. As Marie said, we do the Welcome Baby work with the hospitals. I mean, they're just a key partner. And my hope is that eventually we'll move to where First Five California can put this information in the kits for new parents. So it's not just done locally, it's done at the state level. When they revise the kits, hoping that that could be one of the things that they could do. But really, First Fives and your local child abuse prevention councils are key partners. And if there's anything we can do to support, let us know. We just presented, we just had this presented at the CAPC. Maria, I think, talked about that too, Child Abuse Prevention Council. So anything that we can do. And we also have the local birth rates, which includes the births outside of the state and in the state. So our information is just current because of the funding requirements for local First Fives.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. And actually, with this screen, now that I'm reflecting back on the conversation we had with the treasurer's office, I believe this actually is supposed to have counted those California babies that are California.
I would think so, because they track it based on the birth certificates.
Right.
So typically that includes out-of-state births as well.
Yeah. All right. Any other? Go
I
ahead.
just dropped a note in the chat. Jamie, we just got an email from Noah Lightman, and
Okay.
after he looked at your stuff, and this is one of the comments he made.
Oh, great. Up to part. Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right. Now what you're all been waiting for is Lisa Hoveman is going to talk to us about apprenticeship. And I am going to stop screen so that you don't have to go next slide, please, every slide.
Okay. Can everyone see this okay? All right. Give me 1 second to start the presentation. And I apologize if there's background noise, but they are drilling at our office. And that's always fun. Anyways, my name's Lisa Hoveman. I'm the Director of Apprenticeships at Shasta College. Thank you for having me, Jamie, and asking me to present. Some of these slides will be a little text heavy, but there's a lot of information, and I just wanted it available to refer back to later. And then we'll always have questions at the end. But essentially, the easiest way to describe apprenticeships is that it combines two major components: education and on-the-job training. They refer to the education piece as related supplemental instruction, and then on-the-job training is essentially full-time employment with an employer. It follows an earn and learn model, and that's kind of what this diagram is depicting here, is that usually you go to school, you go to college, you get a degree, and then you start making money in that field of study. Apprenticeships offers the opportunity to do both simultaneously. You do not have to, but that's the ultimate goal, is to gain your education while applying those skills in the fields. It's an industry-led program, especially ours here at Shasta College, is that our industry partners designed and instructed us on the curriculum that we developed for the program. Not only that, but workforce needs. What is the minimum skill set that an apprentice needs, so that when they're hired, they are producing immediately in the field? And that was big for us. And then credit for prior learning is an option. So for example, say someone already has their bachelor's degree but wants to join an apprenticeship program for a certain occupation, they can earn credit for that experience, so they don't have to redo their education or retake classes, if that makes sense. Let's see, moving forward, I just want to kind of put this diagram out there because it makes it a little easier to understand. But you've got related supplemental instruction, which is the education component for apprenticeships, and on-the-job training, which is work experience through full-time employment. You'll notice here that there's a minimum of 140 hours required for this related supplemental instruction piece. That's the minimum. For example, our apprenticeship programs have closer to 300 hours, and that just depends on the in-depth education that they're going to need and based on recommendations from our industry partners. The RSI can be, completed via credit, non-credit, contract, and community ed. We prefer, and the Chancellor's Office, our state of California, is recommending credit programs so students are, receiving those academic credits. But for example, our logging and forestry apprenticeship, it's hard to have 4-credit classes when they're operating heavy equipment and chainsaws due to, lack of faculty and lack of capacity to teach those classes for credit. On the job training side, state and federal require a minimum of 200 hours. But like I said, it can always be more. For example, our apprenticeship programs are 3,000 hours, which equates to about 18 to 24 months of full-time employment before they can complete the requirements. There's different types of registered apprenticeship programs and how you base success or measure success. Time-based is typically just the number of hours. You make sure they complete those, and that's kind of how you measure success in that portion. Competency-based is more along the lines of demonstrated ability. So I would imagine, let's say someone is, succeeding in their field, working really well, getting the experience they need. I bet you can shave some hours and some time commitment off of their program in terms of completion. Hybrid, we all know what that means, but it kind of involves both. And then there's traditional and non-traditional. So traditional apprenticeships kind of focus on construction or electrical trades, and any other occupations. For example, our accounting and our logging and forestry apprenticeships are non-traditional because they're kind of out of the scope of those typical occupations. I think it's important to address the stakeholders that are involved in apprenticeship programs because it does take a village. Employers are the most important, right? If we don't have employers and we don't have their buy-in, we can't have apprentices hosted at sites. So they play a key role in this. And they also help identify the target occupations. What are your workforce needs? Where are we lacking? Where are you struggling to hire? And how can we address that? And then they're the ones who hire the apprentice. So they're paying their wages and things of that nature. And then they're delivering mentoring and providing mentoring while the apprentice is completing their on-the-job training hours. Next is program sponsors and the committees. I'll get into this, but we are overseen by a unilateral training committee. And we convene once a month. It's required through the Division of Apprenticeship Standards to have committee meetings regularly. The committee, which is industry-led for the most part, helps create standards for the DAS approval, and the DAS, Division of Apprenticeship Standards, is the entity that essentially approves your apprenticeship program, your state registered apprenticeship program. And then your committee is there to advocate for you and help recruit both employers to join the program and apprentices. Next is your government entity, who you're overseen with, who you register your program with. That's the Division of Apprenticeship Standards for state registered in California. Other states do have other state entities with different acronyms because we know how much we like those. And the DOL, Department of Labor, oversees federal apprenticeships. They provide funding opportunities, state funds and federal funds, and then you report to the state your metrics. So completions, you're tracking OJT hours, you're tracking RSI completion and things of that nature. From there, each state registered apprenticeship program has to have a local education agency that facilitates it. So technically, Shasta College doesn't own our apprenticeship programs. I'm just employed by Shasta College to facilitate and manage them. The state is what the entity that technically owns the apprenticeship program. And then apprentices. We can't do it without them, but they're the ones completing all of the requirements, the on-the-job training, the RSI, and they receive a state recognized certificate upon completion. So I think that's a big incentive for apprentices joining the programs. This is an example of our unilateral training committee. As I mentioned, each state registered apprenticeship program is required to have one. These are your advocates. These are the people telling you what's necessary, what skills do we need, where are the gaps, and what do we need to address with this apprenticeship. And that varies depending on the occupation. So obviously my focus is in logging and forestry and also accounting. But for any registered apprenticeship program, you're going to want industry experts representing your unilateral training committee. There are a couple more members, but we're kind of transitioning right now due to promotions within the committee and things of that nature. So I'd say typically unilateral training committees are anywhere from 5 to 10 members. Let's see. Here's a breakdown. Yes,
Could
go
I
ahead.
interrupt you? Just I have a question. That unilateral training committee,
Yes.
do you use the same one for all your?
No, so
like,
we have a different one for
different one for
logging and
every-
forestry.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Now, here's a breakdown of state versus federal. And as I was doing some research, I essentially learned that they are very similar. And I even called our state rep because I'm like, I'm not finding any major differences. What's going on? But the state of registered apprenticeship programs are overseen by the Division of Apprenticeship Standards for California. As I mentioned, not every state has a DAS. If they do not have a DAS like that, state entity, then they're overseen by the Department of Labor. So that's one big difference. For state registered apprenticeships, the rules and regulations vary by state. So each apprenticeship program, you put together program standards that outlines the requirements and the commitments, and that can vary by state. Whereas federal, they try to establish national standards and guidelines that are consistent throughout the nation. State apprenticeships have a diverse set of OJT and RSI requirements, whereas the federal ones tend to stay the same. So that minimum of 140 hours and 2,000 OJT hours, whereas state kind of varies by state and program. So we have 272 RSI hours required and 3,000 OJT hours. So that's an example of how it can vary. I've been told that the state has a more stringent approval process. It's very in-depth. It's challenging, but it's not impossible. And they always encourage you to apply for a program. They don't try and shoo you away. It's just a more thorough process. For state apprenticeships, you can use both state and federal funding to support. Whereas for the federal registered apprenticeship programs, you can only use federal funding. So there are differences, but mostly they run parallel and they're very similar. And that's what I found through my research. I think it's important to address the difference between apprenticeships and internships, because we've noticed as we approach employers, if we say apprenticeship, they get scared. I don't know what it is, but the easiest way to describe it is an apprenticeship is a formalized internship, and it's a long-term commitment. Typically, internships are about 12 weeks, mostly seasonal, maybe summer, but very short term. Whereas apprenticeships are either 6 months to 6 years. The average is about 18 to 24 months. So that's a long-term commitment. And the goal at the end of it is to remain employed with the employer that you completed your OJT hours with. Internships can be paid or unpaid or even just strictly volunteer, whereas apprentices are paid a full-time wage. And throughout the 18 to 24 months, at least for our programs, they're required to receive one wage advancement at least. As I mentioned in the previous slide, apprenticeships are seen by state and federal labor agencies, and internships are typically overseen by an educational institution. Upon completion of an apprenticeship, you get a state recognized certificate for that occupation. In internships, you don't typically see any credentials that you receive. You might get a letter of recommendation or something of that nature. Some internships like worksite learning have credits involved, but apprenticeships, most of them promote 4-credit RSI. So you're getting academic credits toward a degree or certificate of some sort. Incentives, why? What's in it for the employer? What's in it for the apprentice? On the employment side, you get to test pilot employees. There is a probationary period that you can set on an apprenticeship if it's just not working out with a certain apprentice, but we go into employer recruitment and let them know that you are hiring a learner. So expect mistakes, but also expect commitment and dedication on their end because they're signing a contract for 18 to 24 months to complete the apprenticeship. You get the opportunity to recruit and develop a diverse workforce. Some of our apprentices are returning back to school, adult learners, and some of them are recent graduates from Shasta College. So anywhere from 18 to 45, I would say. And then you're able, as the employer, when you hire an apprentice, to train them within your company culture. How do you do things? How do you want people to work? What are things like in your office? And it gives you that opportunity to train someone along that pathway. On the apprentice side, I mentioned the state recognized certificate. That's a big one because I recently presented to a class and they're like, well, what's in it for me? Why do I care? I can go find a job on my own. Why do I need the apprenticeship program? So that's a big one. And then I mentioned academic credit via RSI towards a degree. We've tried to design it, especially our accounting apprenticeship, so that there's transferable credits towards a bachelor's degree, and do our best to set them up for continued success. A big portion is it eases the transition from enrollment to employment. Some people struggle to find jobs, especially in our logging apprenticeship. I've never seen a logger post a job on Craigslist. A lot of it's word of mouth. And so that's a big thing to help apprentices or pre-apprentices with that transition into the workforce. And then they get to apply their skills instead of it being, I went to school, it's a theory in my mind, and then I'm going to go find a job in that field. You get to immediately apply the skills that you're learning in school in the field of study, which is big. And then we're trying to develop, a mentorship component, an apprenticeship cohort, so that you have each apprentice has support. And that goes for our employers as well. We're there to support the employers. Recruitment. How do you get people involved? How do you get them to join the program, to buy in, to believe in it? A big one for recruiting apprentices is pre-apprenticeship programs. We have a pre-apprenticeship program for each of our apprenticeship programs. So we have a customer service academy through Shasta College, and our heavy equipment logging operations program at Shasta College is our pre-apprenticeship for logging. And that's big. That's a direct talent pipeline that you can recruit from. Obviously, your typical social media and marketing, get the word out there, share the information and the benefits of this program. Classroom presentations, whether it's high school, youth apprenticeship, things of that nature, but just kind of spreading the word, which we're all doing anyway, right? Hiring fairs. We have recently started doing a student, and I get into this actually for the employer side, so I'll hold off on that. But then faculty members, having faculty buy-in is essential. If you don't have faculty buy-in, you're going to lack, at least for the RSI side, the education piece. If they're not involved and they're not passionate about an apprenticeship program, then you're going to struggle. And so I'm very thankful for the faculty members that have signed on to each of our apprenticeships because they believe in it and they're helping their students believe in it as well, which is great. Recruitment for employers, workforce partners and workforce boards are very key. For example, we partner with the Smart Workforce Center and they can reimburse apprentices' wages for up to 3 to 6 months. And that's a big incentive for employers, right? Not only do I get to test pilot this employee, but I'm also getting reimbursed for half of their wages. So kind of getting creative in terms of helping the employer out is big. Just typical employer engagement, conferences, regional meetings, things of that nature. That's big. And then we recently started doing a student skills showcase for our HELO program, where we invite employers out to the woods to witness the students operating equipment, and we use it as a hiring fair, essentially. We started it last spring semester and had 100% hire rate for the apprenticeship program. And then the fall semester is a little slower because, the logging sites are winding down due to weather, but I think we're about a 70% higher rate from that event overall, which is great. And like I said, the UTC committee, those industry members, not only do they help you develop the apprenticeship program, but it's also their job to help advocate for it as well. They approached us with a workforce need. We're trying to deliver, so you need to help us, right? Quid pro quo. And we heavily rely on them. And then advisory board meetings is always a great place to get to know employers, to continue to address the skills that are necessary to succeed in that industry or occupation. And so that's a great way to get employers on board. Now, if you're going to start an apprenticeship program, these are kind of the key steps that you need to take. First is identifying your employer partners. Who's going to help you out? Who's going to sit on your UTC committee? Who's going to advocate for you? And they are the ones that essentially outline your OJT and RSI. What does this apprentice need to know to succeed in the workforce immediately? And then the progressive wage scales for said occupation, we relied on our Center of Excellence, so labor market data to set those wages, and they shift. So that's something to pay attention to. For example, minimum wage went up. And so there might be a couple things we need to identify there. And then what also big is start collecting letters of interest and support. If you've ever applied for a grant, you know those are essential. And the sooner you can get started on that, the better. Because you need those when you submit for approval with the state. The next is identify your local education agency, the one that is required for state apprenticeships, who's going to facilitate your apprenticeships. And then determining potential funding streams. That's state or federal funding for state registered. You can also braid in other funds like Strong Workforce or Perkins to a certain extent, but identifying potential budgets and what you can manage is important. Next, you determine your employment streams. So who do you want to target? Do you want to target youth, new hires, or entry-level workers? Maybe it's industry displaced workers, and making sure you have a talent pipeline to recruit from. And then the fun part is establishing your standards. So that's where the UTC committee comes in. They're the ones, it's industry led. They tell us what we need to teach the apprentices and what they need to know before they enter the workforce. And then each apprenticeship program has state approved standards, program standards, and I can send those to anyone that requests them. But starting, getting that template working. And I also recommend working with the Division of Apprenticeship Standards representative for your area, because you're going to have questions and they like certain verbiage and they can kind of give you tips and tricks like, hey, you should word it this way, or you might want to think about this so you're not restricted to that one occupation. And that was really helpful as we developed our apprenticeship programs. And then you submit your program standards for approval. And then I just put a little note here that's when the real fun begins, right? You get to apply all of that hard work and start recruiting apprentices and, seeing the success of the program. I just put some resources here in case anyone wants to look into it further. The apprenticeship.gov site has a lot of helpful informations, and they kind of have some cheat sheets. So it's all in one spot and you're not looking or combing through long documents in order to find what you're looking for. And then questions, if anyone has them.
Thank you,
what is the-
Lisa. Oh, sorry.
That was great. I'm curious about the wages. I know in the
Mhm.
past, like when union shops have come in from the trades, there's
Yep.
been a big discussion up north here about prevailing wage. So how is that translating to this kind of apprenticeship?
Well, we are we're non-traditional apprenticeship. So we are not represented by any union. And that was at the request of our industry partners because they didn't want to get involved with that. So we based our wage scales off of labor market data. What's an entry-level employee in this field going to make? And I think I wasn't there at the conception of our logging apprenticeship, but I think our state rep also had a lot of guidance in that regard.
And I know too, Kathy, you can request the Department of Labor at the federal level has these national wage requirements. And then DAS also has California wage requirements. When we were looking at medical assisting, they had it laid out. And so I noticed the Modoc Medical Center was paying like 5 cents an hour less than the requirement. So that they do have a union. So then it was like, okay, now we have to go to the union and try and push that minimum pay to match the California requirement. But the federal government is a lot more open and less strict. So it seems like starting at the federal level with the apprenticeship, getting that going, and then trying to get approval to the state is kind of the way to go.
That works. We also my state rep just informed us that typically if you register with the state, they send it on to the DOL to register it federally as well. So I think it can go one of two ways.
Lisa,
Okay.
have you had any trouble with the competency based or that credit for prior learning getting those approved through the LEA rather
So
than having to take
technically,
academic coursework?
not necessarily. And credit for prior learning is just, let's say someone, has had accounting work experience. They were at a job for 1 year. You can give them credit for that work experience to knock down some months on their overall program. And that's up to the UTC committee. So that's who approves it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I was just trying to think of, our community college system has these classes laid out, curriculums approved. This is how you get a certificate in XYZ.
Mhm.
Is there any way to bypass any of that coursework through the on-the-job training to where you wouldn't have to take necessarily all of those courses? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's sort of unique, and I think it depends on the occupation. So for example, our logging apprentices, one of them has been working for a year. So I don't really think she needs to go back and take the power saw and chainsaw class, right? And that's up to, like I said, the UTC committee and also the employer of record on whether or not those skills have been obtained through the OJT and can prevent them having to retake courses.
And Lisa, can you give me just a little update on your accounting one?
Yes. What do you want to know about it? Just an overview.
I heard about it in the beginning and I've never heard anything since. So I guess
Yeah,
I'm
so
curious where's that.
it's relatively new. And then we had a shift in employment. So we're kind of getting momentum. I was actually just on the radio with one of our apprentices this morning. He works at the Fly Shop and he's their international travel accountant. But we are registered and recruiting both employers and apprentices. And so, yeah, we're rocking and rolling.
Does that have a pre-apprenticeship piece to it as well?
Yes, it's Customer Service Academy because we were hearing feedback that some of the softer skills for our apprentices could use some work. And so we registered a pre-apprenticeship with our Customer Service Academy through Shasta College.
I dropped into the chat a couple of things, one of which is a youth apprenticeship grant that closes on March 15th that just came out. So if you want to take a look at that. And then also, Lisa mentioned a couple of times the Center of Excellence, which actually is housed out of Shasta College, but covers our entire region. So a lot of you know Sarah Phillips, partly because she used to be research analyst at North State Together. And she is more than happy to help when it comes to labor market research in some of these industry sectors. So I dropped the link for our Far North region in the chat, which has her contact information. So if you are looking at doing some labor market research, obviously the Department of Labor has items, but it's not necessarily by the North State region, right? At that federal level. So if you're looking at wages or you're looking at industry sectors and what the need is, that's a great place to start. Any other questions while we have Lisa on the phone, on the line? And also maybe if I'd like to hear, are any of you doing anything with apprenticeships? I can't say that word apparently this
It took
morning.
me a while.
Either at the federal or working at the state level. I know some of you are, so I'd like to hear just a couple of minutes of like what you're doing at a county network level.
Well, we have Red Bluff High extremely interested in doing high school level apprenticeship. And there's a high school in the Central Valley that's been successful with DAS and starting that with both education and IT. So at the CTE Summit we have coming up on March 1st and 2nd, on the 1st for school administrators, we'll have somebody from DAS talking specifically about that.
That's awesome. That link I dropped in the chat would be very applicable, that grant. I know it's a short turnaround, but would be relevant if you guys wanted to move that quickly. I feel like something is happening in Modoc and Siskiyou County.
I was gonna say, I was gonna wait and see if Marie wanted to jump in, but we are working. So we love Carrie Palmer at Shasta College. She's wonderful, and she has a great medical assistant program. I know they're expanding into Tehama County. There was some hiccups with curriculum and trying to pilot, like she's basically designing it to be an apprenticeship. And medical assisting is a little tricky because there's different governing bodies that can issue certificates. So there's federal, there's state, and so she's navigating a lot of things. So we had to delay the start in the fall, and then things got delayed again. So rather than wait, we have no certified medical assistants in Modoc County right now, and we have the Pitt River Health Clinic on the XL Reservation, Modoc Medical Center. They also have a clinic in Canby, and the Warner Mountain Indian Tribal Clinic here in Fort Bidwell all have a need. So we are working with Shane Reeder, who's out of Charter College, and it was a kind of a crazy story. He Tom O'Malley, one of our superintendents in Modoc County, has been on like this PR, like we call him a movie star because he's just trying to recruit teachers like they're suffering, right? So he is talking to all the media and he's doing all the outreach and he's really going for it. And Shane read an article that listed him. And so he reached out to Tom, and Tom just forwarded me the email and said, this guy's talking about pathways. You know about pathways. Could you answer him? So that's how we got connected. I'd never heard of him before he came to our grand opening. He's out of Reno with Charter College, and they have multi-state federal apprenticeships, mostly in the health field, but also in some other areas. So we are working with him on a medical assistant apprenticeship, getting started. And what's cool about it is that it's a hybrid. So it's part, in-person, competency-based, skills-based, and then this online classroom instruction piece that is about 324 hours, I think. So all of our medical assistants, our pipeline is our current full-time working people, and they would do the 324 hours on their own time. They're already getting paid. And then we have to work on the incentive piece. So once they complete their certification, they have to take a test, and then hopefully, we get them a raise. So that's kind of our idea. But I wanted to share with you guys this group called HCAP. I'll put their email here, or their website, in the chat. When I first started looking at apprenticeship in patient care, our DAS gal was really great, and there was some turnover in the DOL, and so we were kind of working with the state, and they basically referred me to HCAP, which is Healthcare Career Advancement Program, and they're a national organization that builds workforce in patient care, and they have a bunch of federal apprenticeship programs that are approved. And the way that it works, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, because I'm still like learning all this stuff, but it sounds like with a federal apprenticeship, if you have an approved program, you could duplicate it at a different site and change up to 20% of what is written. So as long as we are within that 20% range, then you could just cut and paste and your program is like kind of automatically approved. I'm not quite sure how it works with the LEA because they're, to my understanding, they didn't have all virtual programs. So I'm still trying to figure that out. But again, and I'll say it over and over again, my dream is to get an RN apprenticeship going so that we can all have access to training RNs locally. We're still working on getting the prerequisites available locally, so a little slow, but I feel like with the on-the-job training portion, we all have hospitals in our areas, like rural places have hospitals that have to function in multiple ways, and they should meet the lab requirements for our RNs. So my pitch to the LEAs is that we can get you access to master's degree level nurses that meet MNQuals to be instructors if you can help us, get some virtual academic coursework access during an actual nursing program. So that's all. I'll stop because I could go on and on, but it's really cool. It would be awesome to be able to do more apprenticeship.
Thank you, Tanya. I added to the slide deck that we're going to send out after this meeting, the link that Tanya put in the chat, along with some of the other links that came up in the chat regarding apprenticeship. So it'll all be in there as an additional
Awesome.
slide.
Oh,
So that
one
you'll
more
have them.
thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So with one thing that we've noticed with our like Cal Kids and Child Savings Account program is that people around here, and I think some of your counties are probably similar to MODOC, they don't like the idea of free money. They don't like college. They think college is liberal agenda and all this stuff. But when I say scholarships in terms of Cal Kids, and when I say apprenticeship, everyone is on board with that. And so apprenticeships are college. I don't know what the difference is, but they get a lot more respect around here. And just the local support from our schools and our employers is really big. So I feel like this is just in terms of language, a good way to go.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's helpful to me too. We're going to get some flyers just for our region, and maybe we can look at calling it scholarships versus
Yeah,
using
the
other
idea
language.
that some kid has to earn it, you know, they don't like just giving people money. They want it to be earned. And it's like, well, you do have to earn it. You have to graduate and go to college. So, you know, you have to put in the hard work.
Right. Any other questions for the amazing Lisa? I want to give her a huge thank you because she developed a lot of this material based on what I wanted for this meeting and for the learnings for ourselves, just to kind of give this broad overview. So I appreciate all the time and effort that went into the presentation.
Yeah, and thank you. I put my contact information and you have it as well, Jamie, if anyone has follow-up questions.
Perfect.
All right, thank
you so much. All right. I think that we will have time, Marie, if you're still on. I can't see all my screens for my folks, but we'll probably have time to discuss UC Davis for those that want to stay on after and have that conversation. But upcoming, Scale Up is working tirelessly because the afternoon of our summit is going to be linked learning, and Scale are co-designing what the sessions look like for you. So in the meantime, for new folks or folks that have been around a while, if you want to reach out to Kate and her team to have some one-on-one meetings. I know some of you are already doing that, but just know that's always available. We have our 2-day training starting tomorrow for our leadership program and results-based facilitation that will be super helpful for all of you that are going to be coming. You will not find it a 2 days. You will find it 2 days well spent for sure, and all the work you're doing, whether it's around K-16 or any of your other Cradle to Career efforts. March 11th, we have our next regional meeting. That's the same week as our summit, but we plan to still hold that. It's on Monday. And then of course, our all-day summit. Please get the word out. I think we'll have enough capacity to fit everybody. We contacted the Sheraton and learned that we have 190-ish. So I think we'll be okay. I'm not as panicked as I thought we were, but please make sure all of your full teams are registered. We are already getting way up there in agendas and folks coming. And then we will be scheduling our quarterly one-on-one county network meetings. This already happens with the NG counties for their support. Our counties with the original county networks, we're going to be scheduling our 2-year check-in here soon. So 2 years in, believe it or not, to the K-16 grant is about wrapping up. So we're going to be meeting with you all just to see where we're at, see where our budget's at, see what's working, what's not working for the county network level around K-16. And I hate putting this in because it feels like we just finished, but April 22nd is our next quarterly reportings for our narrative and expenditure reports. So data is not due, that's every 6 months, but do note that please come to James's data work groups. And then he'll also be reaching out to some of you on what it needs to look like for the June 30th reporting, because the state is going to want a little bit more in depth than what was provided at your 6-month progress reports back in end of December. And then of course, our Partners for Rural Impact Summit is coming up. Please note that we have lots of folks coming from the region. Please make sure that all the folks that you've told me that are coming get registered if they are not already. We have about 75 so far that are coming from the North State and counting. So it'll be super exciting. We do plan, there's some different deep dives that are happening on that last day, depending on who you are in your role, whether it's just, you know, our county network partners, or if it's community schools work, there's different plannings that they have for that final day. And then we also plan on finding a spot just for us all to get together, because how often do we have 75 folks from our region in the same place? Not often, and sometimes it's in places like Kentucky. So we'll try to get together for at least like an informal meal to be together as a region. Am I missing anything? We have a lot more coming up, but that's it in a nutshell. For those of you on Golden State Pathways work in your county networks, CDE did put out their RFA webinar link for tomorrow. So if you aren't registered and you want to go, I will likely be in one of the phone rooms during our training for the next 2 days to sit in on, listen to what they have to say. So feel free to join me if you're registered for that 2-day results-based facilitation leadership training, to come join me in the other room to listen in on that. Or I can report out of what was said. I'm sure it'll be recorded as well. We don't want to take away too much from the 2-day event. Marie, I see your hand is raised.
I just wanted to chime in for those that are going to the Rural Summit and you have an interest in doing a site visitation to a co-located family resource center at a school. Our Siskiyou team, a small group of us, are going to stay, and I'm scheduling that for oh yeah, okay, our internet's back on. I can quit gapping if I'm slowly. Am I freezing?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. So anyway, so if there's anybody who wants to join us for that extra day, we'll be staying over and going to a site in, at least one site in Berea. But Alan Carver, our county superintendent, and Michelle Line, our community schools director, and myself are going to stay so probably stay. We're doing the deep dive on Wednesday, probably do the visitation Thursday morning. And then fly out Friday would be my guess back for California. So if you have that, if anybody wants to do that, let me know.
Thanks, Marie. All right. I'm going to stop share. I realized I still was sharing, and let you all who want to stay on and have questions for the backbone team will be staying on. And then all of you that want to stay on, Marie and Bethany are going to lead a conversation around. Go ahead, Marie.
Okay, so before coordinators get off, so you know what we're talking about, last year we were able to take a small group of students to an event at UC Davis Medical School called Fostering the Future. And we had a super successful, I was able to take 8 from Siskiyou. I think we had 2 from Glenn and 1 from Tama, or 2 from Tama and 1 for Glenn. I don't remember exactly what. But we've been working with the UC Davis team to expand that opportunity. And they've done so. So we have 70 spots, 10 per county, to be able to take students to UC Davis Medical School for a 2-day event, which is put on by their medical students and research students. So this is a medical student, medical research students and faculty to our students. And Christine and Kathy and I were able to take our students last year. They had an amazing time.